Why? Hello, everyone. Welcome to DnDTime Brews. I am one of your two hosts this evening, DnDTime Jeremy, aka Trust a Flump, and I am joined by the beautiful, the illustrious Peter.
I'm that one. I'm the other one of the two. I am the one that isn't Jeremy. Hello.
Now,
it is good. It is good to
Pete-
see you tonight.
Pete, I got a question for you. I've heard the grapevine's got some rumors going around about you.
What are those rumors? While I dodge the camera while I try and get something important behind it. Yes.
I hear that not only are you proficient in the bagpipes, but
proficient is a strong word.
That you also have picked an entire peck of pickled peppers.
That I have done. Actually, we're all really. This is one of my classic rants I'm going to go into here. You know what really bothers me about that old rhyme, Jeremy?
Pete, what is it?
Well, you can't really pickle peppers on the vine. Doesn't really make much sense to me. There'd be no way to close the lid unless you really built a lid around the vine such that it perfectly sealed it. That seems a very inefficient way to pickle a pepper.
I see.
But I do technically.
But did you do it? I've heard that you did.
Yeah, I did pick a peck of pickled peppers. But I do technically play the bagpipes. Technically, I thought you were. I didn't realize that was a setup for a Peter Piper.
That was a setup for an elaborate fun.
Yeah, that was a very big one, a very big setup. But I do also technically
with the bagpipes.
Yeah, you threw me around because Jeremy, you've never heard me play the bagpipes, which is good. But I do play them.
That's how you do bagpipes, right? That's what those are?
That's pretty much the only thing I can play on them.
There you go. That's all you need to know. And you know what? Welcome, everyone who's hanging out in the chat.
We've gotten a bit off topic.
I spent so much time heckling Pete about the bagpipes. I haven't had time to say welcome, one and all. I see we have a rare sighting today. We got Mr. Plunderloot. Plunder, it's good to see you. I know you're very busy with work, but I'm glad that, you know what? You've had some time to come and say hello.
The light of the dawn graces us once more.
Welcome to everyone else as well. Bionic Sheba, Psychopath 23, and I know there are many more of you in there lurking. I'm sure we've got frogs probably hanging out. Maybe Blood Juice. I
saw Frog.
Everyone who's here, Opal Drag. I know you guys are all here, but welcome.
Good to see everyone. Next Tuesday, Pete plays the bagpipes. Nope.
Not
absolutely not.
Yeah, we call that audio suicide.
Yep, that's exactly the phrase that popped into my mind as well, Jeremy. What a coincidence.
Yes, if you ever want to go deaf, Pete's got you covered. I'll just blast into those bagpipes on the Blue Yeti, and it'll be great. I'm sure I can handle it.
So, Jeremy, as this is, as you know, DnDTime Brews, my question is for you. What are you drinking tonight, Jeremy?
Peter, as always, I'm taking a nice stride down the relaxing path of life with a delectable rum and coke. Beware the smiling dungeon master. My rum? Yeah. Oh, simple Sailor Jerry's black spice. Oh, not even black spice. It's regular spice rum. It's cheap and pretty good.
Well,
I still need to buy better drinks, but I don't have a good liquor store nearby, so it's difficult.
It's also easier for me because my drink is beer.
It
has way more and cheaper options. My drink is a beer I've never had before and will be trying right now. It's pretty good. It is the.
I had waited with bated breath, but it's just pretty good.
It's pretty good. It is the Harpoon Flannel Friday. It is an amber ale. It is a lot hoppier than I would think an amber ale would normally be.
Now, Pete, as an amber ale.
Yes.
I'm sorry, continue. I don't want to interrupt. I just have a question immediately about amber ale.
That was all. It's hoppier than an amber ale would normally be, is my review of the Flannel Friday, which isn't exactly my thing. I'm not like a big IPA guy or anything.
I see. Also, we have Max Mikester and Shogun Turtle, and I was right, Blood Deuce, you are here. I knew it. All also hanging out. You've forgotten one as well. Thank you all for coming by. Now, Pete, I got to ask, amber ale.
Yes.
Are there any old bugs with dinosaur DNA inside of it.
If you put it in the freezer for long enough so it can become hardened, sometimes one will appear.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to know because that's immediately what came to mind. Like, actually, I don't know if that means I'm a child or if I just love dinosaurs.
No. Well, beer was inspired by Jurassic Park, I think. The whole genre.
I don't know if you're trolling me or not.
No, I'm trolling you. But
okay, I thought so, but I wasn't bothered. Pete, before we jump into brews, anything new going on in your life?
No, I mean, like, I'm very sleepy. My voice is doing a lot better. I'm not ready. I know it's the trash druid day.
You're not quite ready to be the trash king.
I'm not quite ready to be I am not the trash king. That was my best effort. That's what I got right now on the trash king. We're gonna get there soon, though. I'm on the upswing.
All right. Well, hello, Diadems. It's good to see you. I've been hanging out over in. Actually, I meant to mention I've been hanging out over in Matty Morg's stream. You can find him twitch.tv/Matty Morgs. And Diadems, I know you from over there. It's good to see you here as well. Thanks for stopping by. I will say I've been into D&D minis for like the last couple months, where I've been 3D printing things. I've been very excited about them. I got like a bunch of things back here, including this cool beholder. I'm a big fan.
The beholder's rad.
But I will say, on Matty Moore's stream, he's been doing a fundraiser where he's been cracking open boxes of the Icons of the Realms minis, which are cool random mini booster packs for Wizards of the Coast. They're really cool. It's a fundraiser for his stream. It's a great way to get a couple new interesting minis for your collection if you're interested. So stop by Matty Morg's stream.
I saw that as well. I was actually thinking about hopping in on that. I picked
up a couple. But I also stopped by my local game store because I was so inspired by how cool his minis looked and picked up some minis myself. And I got a really cool. I'm really excited about this guy. I opened this guy up in a box just earlier, and oh my goodness, he's so cool. Look at this beholder. You can get cool fucking beholders like this. I don't know. He's just super cool. This was from
it's fresh
Rage of Demons box. On a Rage of Demons box. But yeah, there's some pretty sweet minis out there. And they're just really fun, at least to me. So that's my news in my life, Pete. That's cool minis.
That's pretty good, man. That's good news.
Also, I took a vacation. I took a week off from work, and it's been amazing. I feel like a new person, which is going to be great going into the absolute monstrosity that is the end of the year with all the DnDTime stuff and work craziness.
Oh, if I could just show off my mini. Jeremy knows I have exactly one mini. This is my mini. His name is Jeffy. He has been my mini for every character I've ever played. That's all. He's got a lot of heart. He's not nearly as objectively cool as Jeremy's beholders. The beholder's radical. Jeffy's got a lot of spirit.
That's very true, Pete. So yeah, let's we've been bumbling and rambling about for a little bit, but let's chattel. Welcome to DnDTime Brews. This is a show where Pete, myself, and you lovely people in Twitch chat all kind of hang out and we homebrew cool new content for Pete and Jeremy's DnDTime. In the past, we've done race options, which you can find on our website. Links below the stream. We've done magic items, both player submitted and kind of our own concepts. And
we've done monsters
really cool.
Very
we've done
recently.
Monsters too. Yeah,
we've done the user submitted magic items and monsters were also very fun.
Absolutely. Oh, those were so cool. So many awesome ideas for the user submitted monsters. We're going to come back to those eventually.
I want to do that.
Be awesome.
I want to do that. Soon if we can. I love the user submitted ones. Viewer, better.
Viewer submitted. There you go. We've tried what we're doing today in the past once, our very first episode, where we did a subclass option for the Warlock. And it went okay, but it was kind of a little jumbled. So this time around, we're coming in with a little stronger of a concept. As you've probably seen on the screen over here,
Ooh.
We have our kind of rough concept for a circle of the trash druid. Um, this is a druid subclass. We kind of talked about this last week in our brainstorm session where we brainstormed what cool subclass options. There were some really neat ones, including like a doctor kind of subclass for the wizard was really
One of the
neat.
one I was really excited about and hope to do before too long was the jester bard. Sounded very fun to me.
Yeah, I think that'd be really neat because then we could also look at what the unearthed arcana. They had a kind of gestury bard option would be neat too to look at.
I haven't seen that. I'll have to check that out as well.
But yeah, these are what we're doing today. We're trying for
pretty much
a circle option for druids.
So
druid circles are really sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no problem. I was going to say so. Well, actually, why don't you say what you're going to say because you're going to go a little bit more general, and I was going to start talking a little bit about what we were thinking for the trash. So go ahead.
So druid circles are a really cool subclass because there are 4 different benefits that they get for their subclass throughout the progression. Most other subclasses only really give 3 different levels of benefits. So getting 4 distinct, like you get a cool subclass feature and another one, gives us a lot of room to play with here. I've seen some really cool things in chat coming in too. Shogun Turtle saying a spell idea: Trash Man, a level 2 transportation spell. You get in the ring and throw garbage at people. I mean, we're gonna do spells eventually, and I think it'd be cool to have some like cool trash or candy themed spells.
Yeah, that's definitely on the.
But we're gonna be.
I feel like when we do
general,
spells,
I think when we're doing the subclasses, a little more generally applicable, not just strictly the.
Indeed, and
a quarterling race option, Mr. Plunderloot. Of course, half a halfling.
I'm surprised that that's not a joke that I've ever heard before.
Yeah, I've heard the dire halfling, which is just a human, but I've never heard of a quarterling.
Dire halfling is also a very good joke. So last week we were brainstorming a lot of ideas and a lot of different kind of potential archetypes. So we have obviously this very strong theme for what the trash druid is going to be, which is a druid that deals in destroyed things, in ruined things, in trash, in things that are discarded. And we also have a lot of different kind of ideas about what that archetype would actually play like mechanically. And we have a few different things that we're going to get into. But let's talk. The first thing, I was just going to read this little kind of passage we've written thus far. And I think this will probably change after we have made the abilities. But this is just a general idea of what we were thinking a trash druid would be like, very comparable to some of the other ones. They always have these little write-ups describing the subclass before each one of them. So I'm just going to read the one that we have right now for the trash druid. So we have all kind of on the same common ground for what we're thinking to begin with. And this is what we have for it. All physical materials that exist within this world, other than those few created or conjured by magic, can draw their origins from nature, no matter how processed, polished, or twisted they may be. Druids of the Circle of Trash recognize that even the most magnificent of cities and ornate of objects is wrought from the natural, and inevitably, no matter how long it takes, to the natural they will return. They watch over the transition of the creations of civilization back into their base materials, using their magic to both aid in the process and slow or hasten it as they see fit. They can manipulate the dried wood within constructions, the hardened clay within ceramics, and even the raw ore in refined metals. They are guardians of ancient ruins and of forgotten places. And also, that's a general concept, and that might become a little bit more refined as we start actually deciding what we're going to have the trash druid do. But let us know what you think, and if you think that's in line with how you also imagined a trash druid kind of functioning. Not just in the land of D&D time, but this is something kind of, with that description, I think could fit well into any game.
Yeah, exactly. Our main kind of goal here is not just to make a cool subclass for D&D time, but to make it something that like you could probably play with maybe a few tweaks here and there, wherever.
Yeah.
So, at least that's what we're hoping for. So right off the bat, Pete and I have pulled together a bunch of different ideas from different spells or different monsters' abilities and things like that we think are cool, that maybe we could riff on those for abilities that the trash druid might have. And then we also have some example abilities of what some other common druid subclasses have up above. We'll scroll up to those in a second.
To use
But
for
before
sort of reference and balance and things like that.
Yeah, but before we do that, right? I see a point in the chat from Max Meister saying he's got a potential qualm with some of the restrictions the general druid has, saying the first problem is the druid metal restriction. If you're a druid of the trash circle, the restriction on metal should be removed.
I think that's potentially a cool idea.
Interesting point, because I'm not 100% positive if that's actually like. I think it says it in the text, but I don't think in the class description it specifies that you can't use metal, does it?
Yeah, the exact phrasing on that armor: light armor, medium armor, shields. Druids will not wear armor or use shields made of metal. So it's specifically for the armor. They actually don't necessarily have a problem with refined metals, and they use things like sickles and daggers. They won't wear metal. According to the rules.
Really interesting because, like, I've seen a lot of people have. Oh my god, gaming implied. It's been a while. Welcome back, my friend. It's good to see you.
Hello.
Sorry, I had to call that out because I was so excited. But it's interesting the whole druids wearing metal thing. Where technically they can't wear metal, but like that's a complete role-playing option there, in my opinion. I think that, like, if your druid doesn't have, like, a reason to dislike metal, I just don't get it, personally. Like, I don't know. In the situation of, like, this druid, for example, as Max is pointing out, why can't this character have metal? And I guess maybe the argument is, like, it is refined, right? It is civilization, but...
like rubbish metal, yeah. I like that. Just rubbish metal, just garbage metal, like the trash druid. I like that.
Yeah, like Plunder's saying right there. It says so in the book. Scimitars are the preferred weapon for doodads.
Yeah, it just seems.
Doodads.
It does seem strange to me that they've chosen to specify that the armor is okay, but they still let them use metal tools. Yeah. Like, it seems like it would be more of an all-out ban if that's what they wanted to do.
Well, the thing is, it's interesting, right? Because in previous editions of D&D, you've had, like, paladins, where it's paladins must be lawful good. And that's not a thing in 5th edition D&D, even at all.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's what that feels like to me. The druids can't use metal. Is a holdover from previous editions, I think, personally at least.
Yeah, they're trying to keep some of that tradition.
And I personally am completely fine with druids wearing metal, as long as it makes sense for their character. Now, if their character is like, I hate civilization and industry and making things and destroying the environment, and, they go to some dwarves that just strip mined the mountain, destroyed everything, and buy their armor, that's like an out-of-character option, right? But in D&D time, it's a little different because everything's kind of magically conjured. So
and personally... Also, that druid doesn't sound like a Circle of Trash druid.
Yeah, that druid is all just like, whatever, man. It's all going to come back to trash anyway.
All will be trash in time.
Yeah, I see you've forgotten what I'm saying. Weapons don't specify what they're made of. With Plunder saying a weapon is generally accepted made. If it's made of bone, it breaks. Like, that's just...
Yeah.
With rare exception, right? Weapons are made of metal because that's durable.
If I could just do a slight sidetrack as a...
Yeah, we're getting a little off track.
Well, I just want to say one more thing on that track. P. Lyons' DM tip. To let your players have an early sense of equipment progression, I will sometimes give them non-metal weapons and call them -1 weapons. And then they get very excited when they get their regular weapons. It's a real thing I've done, and it's actually worked really well. So, hot tip.
I really like... I like this comment in Bionic Shiba saying, "This is my grass sword right here." Yep, I'm with the grass sword. Let's start some little doodots here where we can start taking content from chat, and that is I'm not too bold. Let them use metal. Yeah, I think that's really cool. I'm in with that completely. I think that makes perfect sense. And let's see what else we got.
Where are you on the dock? Oh, so
I'm,
let's. Okay,
I'm
great.
right at the top. I haven't moved anywhere.
Um,
Do we
and
want to go through the other druid abilities before we start teching through these?
I wanted to talk about the archetypes, if you're down. That idea
Yeah,
of those kind of three
absolutely.
major things. We were talking about this a little bit beforehand, and there was a lot of different ideas that we got. We kind of boiled them down to when we were kind of brainstorming this originally. We kind of boiled those down to three major archetypes that we think blend in with each other to a greater or lesser extent and could all kind of fit within this concept. And those are I'm going to use just phrases arbitrarily. Those are destruction, and by that we mean destroying and kind of taking apart objects, produced objects. Things like maybe disintegrating disintegrating stone to turn it back into dust and let it just kind of meld once more with the earth. Um, Things like spell effects that would be comparable to stuff like transmute earth, where you're transforming these kind of process materials back into their more natural components. So that's this idea of destruction, and that is one. Do you want to talk about manipulation, maybe, Jeremy? Is that would be another one?
Yeah, manipulation is stuff like I'm trying to think of a good example. Things that would like affect the environment around them. So spells like erupting earth, which have big explosions that create difficult terrain, that impact and manipulate the area around them, would fall under manipulation.
It smells
I
like
think,
catapult.
yeah, it spells like catapult, right? Throwing rocks or
Or throwing rusty cans, as the case may be in the dump in D&D time.
yeah, right. That kind of stuff is kind of fitting for this kind of druid. Additionally, like you could even go so far as spells like stinking cloud might be manipulating the air around them, would kind of fit under that
Yes.
category. Opal Dragon.
Oh my god. Okay,
Thank you for your
thank
kindness.
you so much.
Your donation is greatly appreciated, my friend.
Indeed it is.
And yeah, so manipulation is how they like would interact specifically with these kind of environments, these lost, forgotten, or ruined places, which is kind of the core. It's almost like a favored terrain kind of feel, but obviously lost, forgotten, and abandoned
It's
and
a lot
ruined.
more vague.
That's huge, so super broad.
Kind of more interpretable by the DM than just necessarily. And also, thank you, Plunder.
Plunder, you beautiful man. Thank you all for your kindness and for your donations. We appreciate it. And Pete, what's our last category? Is communion.
The last category would be one of communion, which is one that is very important, I think, because it gets back to really what the root of a druid is. Because some of these things aren't necessarily that druidic. You would maybe associate these more with a sorcerer or a wizard, like picking things up and moving them and throwing them around. But it's communion would be the category of really finding peace and life in these kind of places. Things like abilities like sitting on a rune or on a ruin and sort of focusing and being able to learn maybe facts about the history of it, communing with the space around you, much like the spell commune with nature is a great example of this kind of thing, but more focused for the kind of environments that we're talking about with a trash druid. Likewise, things like opening up your mind to a space and maybe doing like a locate object, being able to find discarded things, or picking up a discarded thing and knowing like the last person that has held it, or what it was like when it was new, or things along those lines. But those are the three major categories that we're going to be kind of speaking about.
Yeah, so as we kind of go through these ideas, or as you kind of suggest ideas in the chat, please, we're gonna like go through a ton of different ideas, and we're gonna throw out like 90% of the stuff we have on here.
Indeed.
These are just kind of seeds to kind of sprout discussion. Try and think about how your ideas kind of fit into those core three themes of destruction or reducing civilization, manipulating or changing civilization and the environment around them, and communing with civilization and the environment. So yeah, I think this would be cool. Before we dive into that, though, we should probably go through and briefly talk about kind of the power level we're looking at. So if we scroll all the way up to the top here, we have the very base description. At second level, you choose to identify with a circle of druids from the list of available circles. Your choice grants you a second level feature, and again, a 6th, 10th, and 14th level. Cool.
Jeremy, would you like to do land or moon as we move forward?
I'll do land. So there are two core druid subclasses we're going to talk about. They are land and moon. Whenever we're designing for 5th edition D&D, we really want to compare against the player's handbook. We don't want to compare against Xanathar's Guide to Everything. We don't want to compare against any future expansions. We want to compare against the core, the base game, what 5th edition D&D is. If you start comparing against expansion material, you start getting runaway power creep stuff, and you don't want there to be a point where a player gets BM'd at the table or in the online game like in DnDTime because they said, I want to be a land druid. And someone said, oh, but there's a better spellcaster druid because blah, blah, blah. And, we don't want that. That's something we want to avoid. So our two are the circle of the land and the moon. So at level, these are just a base description. We'll come back to those later because we have a base description already.
Yes.
At second level, land druid gets 3 different things. They get a bonus cantrip. All right, cool. They get to pick the cantrip, so that's nice. All right, neat, I guess. Natural recovery.
Flavor. Yeah.
An ability to regain spell slots. Basically, it's when you take a short rest once per day, you can regain a number of spell slots equal to or less than half your druid level. This is just a cool way of sustaining the druid throughout the day so they have more spells, because the Circle of Land is a spellcaster druid. And then there's circle spells, which is as they level up, they get access to more spells of their choice from a certain list in the book, and based on what type of land they are. So Arctic, coast, desert, forest, grassland, mountain, swamp, or underground. And those are cool because those are just more options for them to play with. Really not a lot of power coming in from the level 2 feature Circle of Land. The extra spell slot is nice. The extra cantrip is fun, and there can be a lot of cool utility in there. But there's not a lot of, coming in, as opposed to the Circle of Moon. Pete, that was I was handing off.
Well, very good. I'm ready to go into it. In the Circle of Moon, there are 2 features that you get that are better than the ones that you get land. If you're looking for raw power, I actually do like the flavor of the land stuff, but for just raw combat prowess, you get Combat Wild Shape. It allows you to use your Wild Shape, which is the ability to transform into animals, for anyone familiar, as a bonus action rather than an action. And additionally, while transformed by Wild Shape, you can use a bonus action to expend your spell slot or a spell slot of any level to regain 1d8 hit points per level of the spell slot expanded. So off the bat, pretty cool. You can just very quickly move in and out of your beast form, which is helpful if you want to do things like cast a spell and concentrate on something, and then dive into combat on your beast form. And the other thing you get is circle forms. The rights of your circle grant you the ability to transform into more dangerous animal forms. During its second level, you can use your Wild Shape to transform into a beast with challenge rating as high as 1, ignoring the max CR column of the normal beast shape table. So normally, you would be able to transform into, I believe, a creature of 1/4 at this level, but instead you were able to transform into a beast of level 1. So at level 2, you get to transform into a brown bear, is kind of the classic Circle of the Moon form that a lot of people go with, because it's a very powerful creature. So this is extremely powerful. To put it into context, if you're going to use the brown bear, they have, I want to say, I might be wrong about this, 34 health as a creature, which means that since you get 2 wild shapes, at level 2, when you take a Moon Druid, you get essentially a health pool added onto you using those 2 wild shapes of 68 additional hit points. So it is massively powerful. It is Druid Circle of the Moon is, I would say pretty confidently, the most powerful thing, at least in the base player's handbook, at level 2 specifically. So there's a pretty large discrepancy that you might be noticing between the land and the moon in terms of where their power levels are at. And one of our big goals is going to be kind of we want to shoot for somewhere in between those two things as we're designing here today.
Yeah, it's really cool, right? Because the Circle of Land is more powerful in its versatility, right? It gets extra
Indeed.
cantrips, it gets more spells that it always has prepared. It gets a ton more versatility to it, which in D&D time is actually really powerful.
Yes,
it's actually really big in D&D time with our crazy adventures. Whereas the Circle of Moon gets raw, like more HP, more damage, and that's what they do. You know, they are that big tanky bear. So those are pretty cool. Why no Circle of Shepherd? Mr. Plunder's asking in chat. Well, really, Circle of Shepherd's really cool.
I love Circle of Shepherd.
First, it's a lot more complicated than either of these. And then second, probably more importantly, we want to compare against the core classes in the player's handbook so that we don't run up on a big power creep scale. So, like, yeah, that's basically where we're at. But yeah, so some pretty cool features at level 2. A lot of varying power, but the core thing that we're seeing here is we have scaling abilities. So if we come up with some kind of cool idea later on that we think, wow, this is a really cool ability, I wonder if we come up with a cool way to scale this feature so that it becomes better as you become more powerful as a druid. This is going to be where we put it. We're going to put it in level 2. So that we can make it start out as a less powerful but cool ability and grow into a really big one.
Indeed. That's one of the core things about level 2. And how do you want...
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask, how do you want to do this, Jeremy? What's your thought? Do you want to go through and talk about all of the levels, or do you want to start by making a level 2 ability, talk about that, and then move on from there?
I think it'll be most valuable to like kind of just go through these really quickly.
Have the full context.
Maybe go through a little more quickly than we have for this one. The other ones are much smaller.
Yeah, level 2 is also the big one.
So then, and then we'll start going through all the features and see what people want to see, right? What you guys want in the class, what you say in chat, what we kind of go through on here, and figure out, well, where does it make sense for that stuff to go? So at 6th level, Druid subclass gets more features. Circle of Land gets something called Landstride. And what Landstride says is, moving through non-magical difficult terrain costs you no extra movement. And if you can pass through non-magical lands without being slowed by them, and without taking damage if they have thorns, spines, or similar hazards. Okay. In addition, you have advantage on saving throws against plants that are magically created or manipulated to impede movement, such as those created by the Entangle spell. All right, so that second part is a little niche. It's pretty niche. There really are only 2 spells in the game that would affect, and those are Entangle and Plant Growth. Actually, even Plant Growth doesn't have a DC on it, so I think it's just Entangle and Ensnaring Strike actually would be the other one.
Yeah.
But not a lot of usability on that. But if we have a cool plant monster in D&D time, that could be really helpful. So, all right. I mean, the first ability is the more useful one. You ignore most non-magical difficult terrain. And then the other one, Moon, gets a different...
yes. Moon... I'm struggling on these segues that you're leading me into. It gets Primal Strike. Starting at 6th level, your attacks in beast form count as magical for the purposes of overcoming resistance and immunity to non-magical attacks and damage. This ability is not... It's just very important, and it's part of the way 5th edition is designed. There are a lot of high-level creatures that you're going to encounter that have these resistances. In order for the Moon to be Moon Druid to be able to damage those creatures, they need to have this feature. It's not really exciting, it's not really flavorful, it's just kind of the way 5th edition is designed necessitates that they have this ability.
Yeah, I mean, this ability just is because druids that transform into beasts don't have magic weapons. Yep. Well, your beast is a magic weapon, now you're good. That's it. That's all it does. It's really no more powerful, it's just essential. You can't have a beast-centered class without having this. It just wouldn't function past level, 6. Probably even level 5. We're at level 5. Anyway, scrolling down to 10th level, Nature's Ward is a land druid feature. When you reach 10th level, you can't be... we'll talk about this. When you reach 10th level, you can't be charmed or frightened by elementals or fae, and you are immune to poison and disease. And immunity to poison disease is actually really powerful.
Yes.
And the can't be charmed or frightened, can't be charmed by Fae. That's huge, actually. That's very big. It's niche, but it's really good when it comes up.
Yeah,
So,
there's going to be times where you feel awesome because,
pretty big deal.
like, you know, Titania tried to cast a charm spell on you. It's just like, doesn't matter how powerful you are, can't be charmed by Fae. And then the Moon Druid gets Elemental Wild Shape, which is awesome. At 10th level, you can expend 2 uses of Wild Shape at the same time to transform into an Air Elemental, Earth Elemental, Fire Elemental, or a Water Elemental. This, I guess, to a certain extent, it is utility, as it doesn't add... Well, it's not exactly utility. It's interesting, because it uses a resource that you already have, so you don't get a new ability to do this. You have to use both of your Wild Shapes, but the Forbs are very powerful, especially in their respective domains. Like, you know, if you're in an aerial battle, being an air elemental is really good. If you're in a volcano, transforming into a fire elemental and all of a sudden being immune to fire is incredible. If you're in a ruin and being able to be an earth elemental and just glide through ground like it was just air, that is really powerful. These are fun and awesome. This is just a really cool ability. I really love this ability.
Yeah, it's just very cool. It's very flavorful. It's an obvious step up, right? Of, well, I'm even more powerful and in tune with nature. Let's go with the elements. So it's actually pretty big. It lets you front load a lot of your power. So that's a pretty important feature. What I was going to mention is actually going back to level 6 with Land Stride and Primal Strike. How powerful are these, right? How much oomph do they really carry? And the answer is not a lot.
Yeah, almost.
They're kind of essential. Yeah, essential. They're both combat based, but they're...
One of them is very, very niche, and one of them is just a quality of life that they kind of had to get.
Exactly. Like, they couldn't not give them Primal Strike at some point with Moon Druid. And so Land Druid just gotta... sometimes you get some really good stuff. In DnDTime, it's a lot more applicable, but that's something to reference there. And then at 10th level, how powerful are these two features? Well, immune to disease, immune to poison, that's including poison condition and poison damage. Wow, those are very big features. That's really powerful. A lot of enemies do poison damage. Even if you're looking at, like, fiends and demons and things that aren't natural, like the Yolkwall is a very, very famous demon that does almost exclusively poison damage. Green Dragon, known for their poison damage. Drow use poison damage. Purple Worms do poison. Everything does poison damage.
Oh yeah, a lot of poison damage in the game.
So that's actually a really big feature. And of course, the charm and immunity is just really good against Fae. I actually don't think there is an elemental that charms or frightens.
Maybe someday.
In 5th edition currently.
Maybe some of the new big giant elemental gods do or something.
It's future-proofing, right?
You're
right. I think the Elder Elementals might. They just came out in Warden Tome of those. And yeah, of course, and the Elemental Wild Shape front loads a lot of your power. It's actually pretty impactful.
Oh, Plunder said Jinn. I always forget that genies are considered elementals.
Are they really elementals?
I believe they are, yes.
Damn. Oh, you're right. They definitely are.
I always forget that, too.
Thank you for the correction. Good snipe.
Indeed.
Good snipe, indeed.
So let's do 14th level.
Yeah, all right. And the 14th level, this is their kind of subclass capstone. Land Druid gets Nature's Sanctuary. When you reach 14th level, creatures of the natural world sense your connection to nature and become hesitant to attack you. When a beast or plant creature attacks you, the creature must succeed on a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC. On a failed save, the creature must choose a different target for the attack, which or it misses. Sorry. On a successful save, the creature is immune to this effect for 24 hours. A creature is aware of this effect before it makes its attack against you. This is an interesting ability. It's like the Sanctuary spell, but
specifically
less good.
Yeah.
And very niche against beasts and plants, which there aren't a lot of beasts and plants at 14th level you're going to be fighting. So this is like, it's really cool when you use it.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes up, awesome.
And this is kind of the thing about, like, capstone abilities I've noticed with the Druid in a lot of classes, where they start to be more things that are geared towards NPCs than they are towards characters, because that's the kind of thing where you meet, like, you have this vision of the archdruid in the forest, and as they walk through, the birds, and even like the mightiest of bears just kind of steps by and like nods to them as they walk through, and it feels like they want to get that idea across with this.
It's a very flavorful ability.
Indeed. And likewise, the moon also gets an ability that's a bit more impactful, I would say, but still very flavorful. And that is, by 14th level, you've learned to use magic to alter your physical form in more subtle ways. You can cast the Alter Self spell at will. And what Alter Self does is it allows you to do a few things. One, you can give yourself an aquatic adaptation and breathe underwater. You can alter your physical form, changing your appearance in terms of race, size, just, the way you look in general, much like a disguised self, but that is not an illusion, that actually changes your form. And also you can create natural weapons for yourself. So you can give yourself big claws or like some kind of horn or something if you want to do that. There are... that's
cool.
Yeah, that's cool. It's not super powerful.
Especially at 14th level, where you probably have some level 1 spell slots to spare, so you can cast Alter.
Yeah. Well, Alter Self's technically level 2, but...
Was it really level 2?
Yeah.
Oh, right, Disguise Self level 1.
Yeah, because it's not the non-illusionary one. Yeah, it's a level 2 spell at will.
Yeah. Which, it's all right. I think it's definitely stronger than Nature's Sanctuary.
Yes, but it's not super powerful. And so we want to kind of shoot for all of our abilities to be in a very similar spot as these ones are. Hopefully, like we said, landing in between. Because there's been a little bit of an edging out, except for maybe at 10, because the poison immunity is very good. But on all the other ones, there's been a little bit of an edging out of the moon over the land. So we want to shoot in between those targets.
Exactly. And I mean, mainly, we want to focus back on that level 2 feature. Because that is where they get, both land and moon get the bulk of their power, and they get scaling power, which gets better with level. So that's really, we want to see if we can find something that's super iconic for this character. Again, focusing on our 3 main kind of genres of destruction, communion, and manipulation. And we want to try and place that here. So let's start going through. So let's see. I must have missed a few things in chat. I know I have. Max saying that Trash Druid should also get immunity to poison disease. That's probably true.
That's something that might end up fitting kind of well into their archetype.
So immunity to poison disease, that makes a lot of sense. What else did we miss in chat? Max is saying that they should get the poison spray cantrip and detect poison and disease.
Well, they already have those things, I believe, as just being druids, because one of the great things about druids is that they get to prepare from a list of their spells. So every day they get to pick some of their spells, and both of those are on the list. So if you're playing a trash druid, you could just pick both of those spells.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool to maybe include the detect poison and disease specifically, but we can come up with that. We'll figure it out. And then there's a lot of talk about elementals like the flail snail. I love the flail snail.
I do love the flail snail. The flail snail is destruction with its giant flailed maces.
And a flump god that anyone can trust. That must be me. Anywho, let's start going through some of our ideas. We picked out a bunch of spells that were maybe appropriate or applicable. So let's start talking through a few of them and let us know how you guys feel in chat, because this is how we're gonna start building this kind of character. We're gonna take these ideas and we're gonna see if we can expand on them and adapt them into cool features. One cantrip that I kind of pulled out immediately was Mold Earth. It's a cool cantrip. And now the big issue with this, just giving them this cantrip, is funky because it's not from the core book.
If we were going to give it to them, we'd probably rewrite the text in a way, and also it wouldn't necessarily be a Mold Earth. We'd probably flavor it a little bit more to specify, ruined ground, or ruins and things along those lines.
Yeah. So the idea of it is it allows you to pick an area of land and move rubble or dirt or whatever we decide. Honestly, I think it fits under that manipulation tree. And I think with Mold Earth, I have a hard time kind of giving this kind of telekinesis-like ability, right? Because it doesn't quite click to me. I see Plunder is saying perhaps ability to become a trash construct. So actually, let's put that on there. Wild shape trash construct might be cool. That was another really neat direction, is going into like different wild shape forms that maybe they have that might be more applicable to them. Could be neat.
Indeed.
Bionic Shiba is saying proficiency in martial weapon.
As long as they are made of trash. Important caveat. One of the spells that I was really, I really liked the idea of kind of playing around with was the mending cantrip, and I think that there's definitely some things that we could mess with there. For anyone unfamiliar with mending, the spell repairs a single break or tear in an object that you touch, such as a broken chain link, 2 halves of a broken key, a torn cloak, or a leaking wineskin. As long as the break or tear is no larger than 1 foot in any dimension, you mend it, leaving no trace of the form of damage. This is just a cool cantrip, but also there's a lot of stuff that we could mess around with for the trash druid. I think we could go in a direction where we maybe reverse it, where they can break things using some time and magic, or the scope of their mending is increased, maybe removing the rust from an object or sharpening something dull, or maybe they can revert the ashes of wood back into lumber. Reuse firewood is like an interesting thing that they might be able to do. Finding value in kind of the broken things, or also just maybe breaking things. There's a lot of stuff to play with in that space.
Yeah, I think mending would be a really neat cantrip to riff on, right? Give them a mending like effect, like people were saying, that can destroy rather than mend. That fits definitely under that destruction kind of motif we were looking at before.
Indeed.
And might be a neat little, I think in combat, it's probably not very good, but it could be a really nice flavorful ability that the class just gets that could be really helpful out of combat. Might be neat. So I'm gonna highlight that for now, and we can come back to it.
What other ones? There's so many things here. There's what other ones did you feel really like kind of strong about, Jeremy?
That really stuck out to me. I really liked a couple of spell options that I thought were cool, namely like Earth Tremor and Erupting Earth were the two. Where's Earth Tremor? Yeah. So I liked these because they fit very much on that like destruction kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Where they pick an area, they destroy that area, and it creates difficult terrain. And I was thinking like a couple of cool ways, and chat, let me know what you think about this idea. But what might be cool is, rather than, because we don't want to just give them spell options, I don't think.
Yeah.
Especially since I think both of these are already druid spells. So giving them as spell options doesn't really change much. But maybe we could have some kind of ability that says like, when a spell or ability of yours would create difficult terrain, gain additional effect for terrain, right? Maybe your difficult terrain does something different or more impactful or potent. The fact that it is ruined and destroyed might be something neat, right? I just think that'd be cool.
Yeah, I think that's a creative mechanic. I think that could be very cool.
Yeah, so like maybe it's like creatures can fall prone or get hurt by moving through, or whatever. I mean, we can come up with a million different
prone was kind of the first one that I thought of as well. But mending, bending.
Bending, indeed.
And a couple other things. I know you had kind of taken this one from the monsters section, Jeremy. And also,
which one?
Stonetail.
Oh yeah, this is a really, really cool feature that came from a monster from Concepts from Monster. And let me get down to it so we can actually look at it. All right, right here.
It's from the Geonid.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what would allow the creature to do is to touch a stone object or surface and know what types of creatures have been within 10 feet of it within the last, span of time, 24 hours in this particular case. And there's definitely something there. That's kind of very much in the communion wheelhouse. And there's a lot of stuff we could play around with there, be it something like a legend lore spell that allows one to, learn the history of an object, or a locate object to find something, or, the possibilities are endless. But that's an ability to kind of learn about broken things is something that I think definitely feels like it's in the realm of the Trash Druid.
Yeah, and speaking of the trash, we got a couple of people coming in right now. Plunder was saying rust monster, perhaps corroding items. And Bionic Sheep is saying corrode metal seems like a terrifying thing to give them. Let's do it. I mean, there are a handful. Corrode metal, I think, is from an ooze. I think it's from the gray ooze. Maybe not. And then there's the rust monster, rust metal. These are some really cool features, I think, that we could find a way to tie in, right? God, how do we want to do that? Maybe one of the things that I think we kind of started on earlier with Plunder was saying, or put in there, was allowing maybe a trash construct form. Maybe, and P, you let me know how you feel about this. Maybe we give this subclass some cool alternative wild shapes. That might be interesting. Maybe not. Maybe it would. Because, I could totally see, a shambling mound being a wild shape option for this druid. Which is, cool, because shambling mound is CR5. It's very powerful. And it kind of fits on that same level as an elemental, right?
I see what you're getting at now. You're thinking kind of an Indicus Reefer situation.
God damn it.
Well, that's a reference to an old campaign, but it's kind of clicked with me now what it is that you're picturing. Where
I think it could be.
Yeah, no, I think that would work well as a
rust monster wild shape would be
and I think that will go into the kind of the concept of and this is a thing I guess that we haven't really talked about because it's more part of the theme than it is part of the mechanics. But this idea of making use of the trash as well, because I think that's something that, while we haven't specified it, is implied by the kind of the design. And I can picture maybe one of the more endgame, maybe that sounds like a level 10 ability to me. The ability to kind of just as you walk, picking up detritus and things from around you and just kind of turning into this trash elemental almost. This trash construct.
It's it's a question, right? Because one of the directions we could go that's been established by the Moon Druid, right, is Moon Druid. Bunch of additional wild shape options that are more powerful. We could totally do the same kind of direction with this, just with a bit of a different flavor, and maybe we pull away some of the effects that the Moon Druid would have gotten. So maybe we don't give them quite as powerful early game options, so we can give them some other cool abilities too. And then they get the Shambling Mound would be a really cool 10th level feature that's got a lot of
probably that's probably if we're gonna give it to them, that's kind of the big thing that you would take. That would be the thing when you look at all the stuff that the subclass gets, they'd be like, oh, I want to do that someday.
Yeah, I'd love the idea of maybe give them an ooze, even you can become an ooze. That'd just be so cool, in my opinion. It might be it might be beyond the scope that
it seems it's starting to move a little bit outside of the identity, is my thought.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Let's talk about let's start talking about the second level ability, because I think we've both on stream now and off stream, both of us discussed this a little bit beforehand. The idea of playing around with this mending and destroying objects with it. I think that would be a great core feature for the class to start kind of playing around with. You also had mentioned the idea of maybe doing a multi-tiered ability, and kind of touching on these different core aspects, these ideas of manipulation, of destruction, and of kind of and of communion. How do you feel about an ability, Jeremy, entitled reduce, reuse, recycle. And they have a destruction feature in reduce, a repairing feature in reuse, and a manipulation feature in recycle. And they all similar abilities.
I think that'd be neat if it worked. Like, if it works out that we get 3 cool abilities that we could do that with, that'd be rad. But I don't want to, like, force in an ability that I don't jive with as much, just to fit the theme, you know what I mean?
I agree. So,
like, I'm trying to think of what I do for, like, recycle.
Oh, my thought that is raw manipulation. Something
like what?
Picking up and moving around destroyed objects, making use of the things that are downed. Much like much like a catapult spell.
Okay.
Or not. When I say catapult spell, maybe not even a damaging ability, but like a bolstered mage hand, and maybe we can scale them all the same way by using the weight that you're able to destroy, repair, or move around as kind of the core facet that can scale equally through all of them. So you can destroy a thing of this size, you can repair a thing of this size, or you can move around a thing of this size.
Yeah, the problem I have with the move around thing personally is like that feels a lot like just a telekinesis. Well, it is a telekinesis effect, and that's just a little wonky to me, just a little bit. Maybe it's all right.
The way that it kind of that I think of it in my mind, and is it's the trash druid's innate abilities to manipulate and control the small pieces of nature that are in everyday objects. And I think the way that
what you're saying, but like,
and I think the way that we rectify it is that we specify that it's non-magical, non-magically created, and I think that's the thing that will bind it and make it feel like it all fits.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm totally getting it, but I think as we go, maybe it'll click a little bit more. Let's talk about that level 2 feature, because that's what we're looking at right now. Level 2, and for level 2, what we're saying. So we want to make a 3-pronged ability. Is what you were saying? A 3.
That was what I was saying. But maybe we want to focus on one of those if we don't want to take the 3-pronged route.
Well,
that was the thing that we hadn't talked about either. Yeah, I agree as well.
I see Shiba saying, I feel like recycling would be more of a reshaping feature, like the ability to reshape an object into a different one of the same material.
That could also be pretty cool.
Yeah, maybe like, I know one of the spells that we kind of tossed on here as like a maybe this would be useful option is Fabricate, a level 4 spell, which you convert raw materials into products of the same material. For example, you can fabricate a wooden bridge from a clump of trees, a rope from a patch of hemp, or cloth from flax or wool. And choose objects fit within an area, and you do some stuff.
Is that Natch Druid? That's not normally a Druid spell, right?
No, I'm pretty sure Fabricate is a wizard-only spell, and a rarely chosen wizard-only spell, too. I
really love that spell.
Well, especially since it's an area-based, like, the power of the spell is limited by its area, right? This 10-foot cube.
Yes.
That's something that just is obvious, super easy to scale. Yeah, like she was saying, just do Fabricate with smaller area, and then it can scale, right?
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. We can have all of the things scale off the same kind of metric.
So yeah, I think we're not going to worry too much as we're designing this, guys, about such as do reduce, reuse, cycle, and maybe we don't call it that, right? But that's, I think, the concept, the 3 concepts we're going for, right? Reduce, reuse, cycle. Fabricate, but with a smaller area that scales, based on Druid level, and maybe it can take apart stuff to create that rather than requiring raw materials, maybe it requires already used material.
Yeah, I think that could work.
That might be interesting.
And I think, we could probably put. It would be nice to have a catch-all that we can do in the first half of this description that kind of hits all of these effects.
Well, my thought, right, is like we'll worry about the phrasing and the exact text off stream because
You don't want to do any of that tonight?
I think we'll see how far we get, but I think our
Okay.
main goal is to have our concepts down because in the end, this feature, all right, we want there to be exceptions so that people don't, don't cut down a tree just so they can use this effect on it, right? We don't want these
Exactly. Yeah, we have to make
loopholes.
sure we.
If we have that stone tell feature where the druid can talk to like a ruined object to find out who ruined it or something.
I'm taking their great hammers and smashing them into the ground and being like, kobolds have been here.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want like the players just destroying the walls of the dungeon to then ask the wall of the dungeon, all right, were the kobolds here earlier? Like it's just silly in a way that isn't good, I think. It's gaming is the key.
Yes, exactly.
And we don't want the abilities to feel game. We want the abilities to feel
like you are.
Like they make sense, right? Like it makes sense to the character in the world. Sorry, I mean drop. But yeah, honestly, I think I'm pretty pleased with where we're at so far. I like what we're doing. I think we need to figure out what this reduce and reuse would be a little bit more. Because I think we're at a great place with recycle.
My thought for reduce might be just destroy a non-magical thing. Maybe we can go like even we could go disintegrate, honestly, and not have it be a damaging disintegrate. Work on non-living material, and I think if we're gonna, not getting into the wording, but the way to specify it is if you can't use it on something that's part of something greater if it's bigger than the area. So you couldn't disintegrate a part of a wall if the whole wall was larger than the thing that you're doing. You could only destroy something that is in its entirety of a certain size.
So something that's not held, it's non-living, and it's got to be artificial. So like, you're not going to be burrowing through a cavern wall with this ability.
Exactly.
But maybe a door.
Yeah, a door. Like I feel like at level 1 you wouldn't be able to do a door, but as it scales, I feel like a door would eventually be like the perfect kind of thing that this ability would shine on.
And maybe it's weight based. I think like we had talked about like using weight as a scale here, so maybe like weight based scaling.
Maybe for this it's weight based, and for the fabricated size based. But we can probably come up with a way to still scale them the same way, even with different.
Yeah, I feel like this reduces like definitely like it's a fun ability. The problem I'm having at this point, conceptually, is reuse and recycle are pretty much the same thing in the D&D context.
Mm-hmm.
Not like, and I guess that's where I'm at, right?
I guess for fabricate, we've gotten a little bit into what I was kind of had in mind at first for reuse, which was like a larger scale mending, because mending can fix, a broken pair of glasses. You can what's the Harry Potter spell for fixing glasses? I'm sure that someone Oculus Reparo, but I imagine a reuse would be that on a much larger scale. Like they could at like a very high level fix like a fissure in a wall or something like that. Like that would be, I think, very cool.
Okay, so you're saying like a mending thing.
Yeah, like a buffed up mending, which we were talking about before. Farku, reuse. You can reuse broken junk.
That might not be. I'm trying to think.
Recycle. Make something else out of junk. Yeah, we're definitely with you on that one.
Yeah, no, we're getting it. It's just maybe like a mending kind of feature.
And
mending, but better.
I like this, but I like this whole thing. And I guess to play devil's advocate to myself, as I know I have been leading the charge on this very much. The one thing that concerns me about this thing is that it does not offer a lot of direct mechanical benefits, unless we want to, give it one in the aftermath. But I'm not seeing a lot of ways that, like, because the other two definitely give you something that you can use in combat, and this would be entirely kind of interaction and exploration.
The bright side to Druid, the best part about Druid, is if a Druid had no subclass option, they'd still be okay. Because the Druid chassis has cool spells that are pretty impactful, on a full spellcast. Pretty good for a base class. And all of the subclasses make that better. This right now, it reminds me a lot of that Circle of Land, where it's got some really cool utility features. Maybe we could kind of combine the two. I know the chat was super into the bizarre wild shapes, and I think that would be really cool, because part of our deal, right, is Ancient Ruin and Forgotten Places. Yes. So we want Ruin, we want the manipulation of these manufactured things, and we want the Forgotten. And I think what might be really cool, and I mentioned this earlier when we were kind of brainstorming this list, Pete, is Forgotten Forms as like a cool different wild shape options, where maybe we pick like a different wild shape option for a couple of the CRs that would be available. And maybe we're getting a little too high up with the Shambling Mound.
Well, I think that could be a cool, like, high level. I think that could be a cool high level thing. I like that. Like,
yeah, I mean, it could be, but it'd be weird to not have power and wild shape early and then suddenly have a huge power and wild shape. I want it to feel
okay, I
like
see what you're saying.
That's why I was saying maybe not the Shambling Mound, but maybe some lesser oozes or like a rust monster, something like that like it gives some cool utility, because like the oozes, right, they can squeeze through stuff. That'd be really neat. They got Spider Climb, they can stick to ceilings, they can squish through tiny areas of their amorphous form. Like, there's a lot of interesting utility in that like your land druid don't got, because they're like, I can become a bird, and that's they can fly, which is great, but it's different. And I think maybe giving them some different options could be cool.
If we're gonna go that beast route specifically,
maybe like I mentioned earlier, a custom. Maybe we make some custom beasts, like a giant dire mole, which just isn't very much better than a blind mole, but it can dig better, and then you get a cool burrow speed. They need.
You see, a thing that I would like to do with this, because I feel like the one thing that I'm disconnecting with on the beasts is that I just, for one thing, the archetype of, turning into stuff and that being where your power comes from is, very moon druid. But the other thing is that it doesn't necessarily, like, turning into an ooze or turning into a specific creature doesn't feel like, communing and making use of like the ruins and the Forgotten Places. What I would maybe like to do is like do something closer to, say, an alter self spell, where they have things that they can, like, maybe they can, and this would fall into the category of manipulation too, where they can like pull stuff up onto the body and kind of move into these like different kind of, forms, which at, maybe the low level is, if you want to do like the giant mole instead, just let them kind of have, metal prongs that they kind of, pull and like attach to the outsides of their hands, and they get the tunneling speed that you would want to go with for the giant mole.
I'm seeing what you're saying.
And then for the Shambling Mound, it's not like literally a Shambling Mound. It's them like picking up like huge chunks of rock and stuff like that, and they're more of kind of this like, they are like the living ruin, as they're not necessarily, maybe it doesn't even have to use the wild shape as a resource. It could be its own kind of discrete thing.
I mean, I think what we're getting at, right, is you're thinking maybe we have some ideas where the druid can put crap on themselves and like become a mound of shambling stuff, but not a shambling mound. They just are adding crap
precisely, rather than completely becoming the thing. And it will still kind of preserve the mechanic that I think is, because were you like really into the flavor of the ooze and the mole and like that kind of stuff, or was it more the mechanics of that you were liking?
I just think that's cool. Personally, I just think it'd be really cool to become those kind of weird grody monsters. I think that'd be neat. Obviously, I don't think they'd add a lot of power necessarily. But maybe they would in certain circumstances, right? Being able to become an ooze, and you don't get a lot of health, you don't get a lot of armor class, you're really not that much more powerful. But if the monster attacks you, it's going to take a penalty to its weapon, and you're going to help everyone else in your party for the rest of the game.
If you're fighting a bear, you get split into multiple oozes, and
I don't even want to think about that. But that's only the one ooze. Maybe we'll I think it'd be a specific list of creatures if we would. But I think regardless, Pete, we're actually 10 minutes over for our break. So let's take a quick moment. We'll refresh our beverages. And when we come back, we'll keep kind of digging into. I think we're going in a really cool direction with our reduce, reuse, recycle kind of scaling features. And we'll see what else we end up putting on here.
Agreed.
All right.
See you soon, everybody.
We'll be right back. Welcome
Welcome back.
everybody.
I feel like that might have been in sync, Jeremy. That welcome back might have been low-key perfect. We'll have to...
I hope not. I mean, wait, that's not what I meant. I meant great. Yes, hello, everyone.
Hello.
I see Farku has joined us, and as well as Irony Golem. Hello. There's a whole bunch of chat that I missed in that 5 minutes. Junction Freight barding for their beast shapes. Maybe. So I think the first thing we need to kind of sit down for just a moment and talk about, right? And I think this kind of ties into Bionic Shiba's suggestion of them being able to create barding for their beast shapes with the trash. Is what do we want this class to accomplish, right? Because I think we've lost that direction a teeny bit. So, like, we look at the Circle of Moon, right, Pete? And the Circle of Moon is all about their beast shapes.
Yep, it's very clear there. Yep.
Big, tanky, I turn into beasts, I hit people as a beast. Very straightforward.
Yeah. Circle of Land, it's spells, and then they do some other miscellaneous things.
Yeah, it's utility and spells. Yeah. So what do we want this boy to do? And I think, coming back around to our original kind of concept, we want them, like Fargo just said, the terrain thing, affecting the terrain, affecting the environment around them, especially trash should be crowd control. I completely agree, Farku. So I think we want to make sure we don't miss that. I think with this kind of three-pronged scaling feature here, we're hitting on it, where they can affect the environment by removing aspects of it. They can reuse by, replacing things. Maybe the bard smashes down the door and you're like, oh, the door is back. And, recycle, they can fabricate cool stuff. They can make cool things.
Yeah.
That affect the environment. So I think we're hitting on it there, but I think maybe we should focus more on some other abilities that might
So you say you want to mess around with this terrain feature. Maybe that's an ability that they can just use, and maybe that's something, because right now, I think,
hello, Matt,
and we've established this as well, is that this kind of reduce, reuse, recycle thing doesn't actually provide any combat abilities at the point where you kind of get it. And one of the kind of defining things of the other two is at level 2, when you take them, Moon Druid, as we mentioned, is the most impactful in the game in that particular regard. And then Land Druid, you get the spells and you get the ability to recover spells. They all have things that scale well, and maybe this is the aspect of the Trash Druid that this reduce, reuse, recycle is. This is the thing that scales and really starts to see, dividends as you go on. But maybe this ability to control the terrain and to create difficult terrain, because that sounds very fun as well. Maybe that's something else that they also get at level 2. So when we actually do this, since I think the feature can seem a little big as we have it right now, because we're just saying like, oh, it does all these things, it's like better mending, but we can also scale that a lot back when we build the mechanics themselves, off stream later on, and make them, fairly unimpactful when you take them and then, scale up well. As opposed to making a more immediately impactful thing in the form of this difficult terrain. How do you feel about that, Jeremy?
Oh, I completely agree with that. But I noticed that, Bionic Shiva mentioned in chat, it seems the trash kind of went to the wayside and it's become more a circle of ruin. That's true. Right now, with the one kind of feature we've really stuck on, that's definitely true. And so maybe we want to go back and I see Mervitel Black Talon crying out in the Discord, oh no, I'm late! I'm sure they'll be here momentarily. But yeah, is that a direction we really want to go, more on this ruin? Or do we want to try and go back and get some more of those
get back down
abilities?
To the roots?
Right?
That's something that's very important. That seems like a 6th thing to me, is really where we start to hone in, I think, on a lot of the community stuff.
Let's go down to that first communion ability we pulled, Stone Tell, from the monster. And let's go back up now, and I'll paste it up here, because it sounds like this is going to be one of the directions, like one of the ways we really go with Stone Tell. and maybe it's the druid instead of the geonid
Yep.
touches a stone object. So instead of a stone object or surface, what is this? A ruined or
maybe broken.
A ruined, abandoned, broken, or abandoned or broken object. There we go. Object or what? Like, do we want to say a ruined place? I don't think we necessarily do.
I do like, and this is a thing that we talked about when we were originally talking about them, is them, like, I imagine them kind of placing their hands on the ruin and just kind of like running their hands over the stone, and all of a sudden kind of like being able to almost see the place in its prime. Like, that is very appealing in terms of a vision for what this kind of, that this kind of druid can do. And I think it also, fits really well for trash. I picture them walking among the dump, and the trash druid picks up the old bottle cap just out of the random mound of trash, and can see like the child that knocked it off the soda can and drank the cola before discarding the can on the streets, where it eventually ended up in the dump now. That's like the vision I have for what the ability would do. It's just a question of how we want to represent that mechanically. But do you agree with that being like?
Oh yeah, I think that's awesome. I think that's getting much back onto that kind of trash theme that we want, without going totally into ruin. So yeah. I highlighted the word place here and put it in quotation marks. It's Mike was saying for that version of Stone Tell, the object can only speak of things that have happened after it was broken. I totally agree.
Yep.
I think that's absolutely, because that's a big thing we were afraid of.
Definitely necessary.
You get to the door into the dungeon. Oh, I smashed down the door. All right, door. Who's come through here recently?
Just tell me the tale, door.
You did when you smashed me. That's all I know. I'm a door.
I also like the idea of when they try and do that the first time, people thinking that they've like exploited it, and they're like, "Show me your history, door," and it's just a vision of you smashing that door.
Oh. Tangerine Parasol is saying it could be like a trash sense where you can sense notable trash. That actually could be
that's
neat.
I like the way, like, for me, that would work. I'm worried about how that would translate into mechanics.
Like how you say it, right? Like how you would mechanically do it.
How would you word that?
We'd have to think about it, but
yeah, it'd be tricky, but I do like that direction.
It's almost Sixth Sense for like, I'm looking for lost, forgotten, and abandoned things.
Like this thing,
like you find them, you're attracted to them.
That kind of like this thing. I know that this thing has a history when I can almost smell it on the object.
So anyway, the druid touches an abandoned or broken object or a ruined place and knows what types of creatures have been within 10 feet of it. In the past 24 hours.
Is this something that's going to be? Is this something that's going to be an at-will feature? Do you think?
I think so.
Just be able to do.
I think it'd just be cool because it's kind of niche and specific as to what it was.
And so, how do you? Well, tell me how you feel about this scenario. One where, because this also would feel a little bit gamey to me, where a player places an object in a space as like a scrying thing, to like be a ward and to like observe and later pick it up and see what happened with it. How do you feel about that? I like it more than I like the destroying something, but I still am not sure if I'm a huge fan of that particular interaction.
Well, the niche, right, is it says you don't know their identity, which is kind of the key. You know that creatures have been by, but that's it, right? So
you think
I'm almost okay with it.
You think that is kind of obfuscated enough that that information is fine if they just can do that all the time?
Well, the point, right, is like that's not an abandoned or broken object, and that's not a ruined. I guess if they break something and then leave it, but that's just so like.
Yeah, again,
maybe
that's like
highlight this whole vibe here, and say
and really think about how we want to make that.
Put a comment that says,
come across in the way that we want it to.
Something that is truly trash.
It's really just gotta be. It's
Yeah,
really
like
just gotta be trash.
refined phrasing. And we'll figure that out another time, because sitting here and trying to smash our heads against the wall
we don't want to do that.
is just a waste of everyone's time.
And the other thing I would like to put on this feature is I like the idea of when they touch it, they get to see a vision of it when it was new. They know what the object at bare minimum looks like, and I think when we phrase it, we'll put in an additional caveat, like the DM may choose to tell you a piece of history about the object if relevant, or something along those lines, and entirely put that up to the DM. But yeah, if you pick up, the rusted scabbard, you can see the freshly forged sword for a brief moment.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's cool.
And I think this is a pretty. I think that's almost ready to go as like a level 6 ability.
Yeah, the qualm I'm having right now is numbers. That's something that I hate as a kind of principle. It's kind of like the core of it, but
yeah, appraisal for sure. I agree, Raventail. The scavenger / appraiser look. And as the druid, if we're using some of the other features, maybe you find something that was like, oh man, this is actually a really high quality piece. It's just a little bit damaged when you see it in its full form. And then as a scavenger, you could use some of your other abilities to like fix it back up and then sell it. Because I think that's that kind of vision could very easily come across in what we're starting to build here.
So instead of number, can we just put approximate number? Because I hate exact numbers and features. One of the things I know, the revised Ranger had this problem with its primeval awareness, I think, where it's like you can tell exactly the number of X, Y, or Z within 5 miles.
Yeah.
And I despise that as a dungeon master, because it means I no longer have the creative liberty to futz around with that encounter when it happens. They can be like, oh, well, I fought 3 random encounter Yetis. There are no Yetis left. And when the players get to the Yeti cave that was supposed to be like a big fight with the Yetis, it's like, well, there aren't any because there can't be, because I know all the Yetis.
Well, they walked in afterwards. I'm
getting rid of that ability. I hate it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like there's a way to put a little bit more mystery on it. Even with just like the approximate, again, that's a phrasing thing that we'll have to come up with later.
Yeah.
But I think we can come up with a way that will be even greater than Wizards of doing that kind of thing.
It's funny. Shiva says they were 5 miles and 1 feet away. And
great minds.
A player will hate that so much when you do that to them. They'll be like, "Wow, you just slapped my ability in the face. Thanks."
They were out on a hunting party. It's not.
They'll be livid.
See, I always, whenever I have to make a hard committal like that, my trick is always to think about it for a while and then answer, but give kind of like a sly look, so that they know that the answer is in some way being changed, so I can mess with it later if I need to. Like,
yeah,
at this time, I think no, it would only be 3 right now. Like, I always like put those like vagues on it.
The Yeti cave has naturally lined lead walls. There's a lead deposit here, so you don't sense the other 7 Yetis.
That would be funny as hell. I wouldn't even be mad. That's so ridiculous.
Anyway, this is a cool ability. We're seeing level 6. Let's look at what the other druids get at level 6.
One of them gets magic damage, and one of them gets land stride.
Yeah, those are pretty minor abilities. I think it's absolutely fine to just give this as a level 6 feature. What do we want to name it? Obviously, it's not called Stone Tell.
Yeah, Trash Tell.
I mean, I wasn't sure, Raventail, if you were suggesting the name, like Scavenge / Appraise, or.
I mean, that could be a cool name. I was thinking something like my first thought, and I might like that idea of like scavenging as a name, even or appraisal. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I like it
I
a
think
lot.
I think appraisal is a cool name for it. I was gonna call it something like,
Like,
memories of the broken, or like, something very high fantasy.
I mean,
But
even like the Scavenger's appraisal's pretty good.
I think that's
Like,
cool.
I think if we just use appraisal, it sounds too high society. You know what I mean?
I agree.
It's like, oh, you have appraised my gems. That was me looking at the gems on the rings on my fingers, by the way.
I could hear your hand moving up and you
Yeah,
gazing at it. I think that's
super
cool.
dig that. Let's just put that right in at level 6. I think that's a super thematic ability.
Yeah, it's just going to need a little bit of tweaking on the wording. It's going to be tricky, but I think it's cool.
Oh yeah, I think it's definitely. I think it's good. Put that on there. And bada boom. Cool. So we have our cool level 6 feature.
Agreed.
And card pockets.
Oh,
you love the
card pocket.
Trash Kingdom.
Just for you, I'll try it despite my voice. I am the Trash King.
Oh, I could feel the pain in your throat.
It hurt a lot.
Cool. So we have now a pretty radical ability for level 6. I like that. I think that's like pretty spot on for like the trash theme we want. Because I don't want to go too far. Like she was saying, I don't want to go too far.
Yeah.
Ruin.
And this is important. You need you to. Hey.
I'm sorry. I just read Shiva's comment earlier. These Yetis just happened to slaughter a lead merchant right outside their cave. Whoa.
Agreed. I appreciate y'all helping us keep on that track, keeping that heart in there.
One must suffer for great art. I agree with you.
And one
Card
must.
Pocket, I suffer for my art.
One must art for great suffer.
That's why I don't make any art. Anyway.
Let's talk the next ability that we're going to go with, which is, or actually, we might want to. Maybe we can go back to level 2 now and talk about getting that like terrain thing in there.
So, like, one of the things I mentioned way earlier, right, was when a spell or ability of yours would create difficult terrain, maybe giving it some additional effect. I'm kind of into it. I'm kind of not. I'm not sure, because obviously,
I feel like. Oh, go ahead.
It makes certain abilities, like specifically Erupting Earth and what the hell was the other? Earth Tremor, more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
But
and like the Earth bendy kind of vibe, it might not even be what we want, and that kind of encourages that. I feel like if we did this, we'd want to, along with the ability, give them some kind of new general ability to create difficult terrain.
Yeah, that's the thing, right?
That's it. That's all I had to say about that. We'd need to give them something else.
Well, it'd be like the Mold Earth cantrip, right? That would be the shtick.
Yeah.
Is that cantrip allows you to do that, to create or remove difficult terrain as an action.
How much do you get to do?
It's a square.
Okay. So yeah, maybe like or even I like the idea of maybe going into like but then that doesn't really make sense to me. I was picturing like, channeling some magic, and as you walk, it just kind of makes difficult terrain around your footsteps. But that becomes very game boardy.
That's way too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, I'm spitballing, but I don't think that would work well. But, maybe there's something that can be gleaned from that will get us closer to what we're looking for there.
And see, I like this where Raventail Blacktail is saying, and for those wondering in the chat who may not be familiar, Raventail plays a druid who's probably going to be a trash druid in DnDTime. So that's very important. Lily of the Trash Kingdom. And Lily uses a spell Entangle, more of a helpful spell than an offensive one, where you can like climb down with it and stuff. That might not be a terrible idea.
That was a cool utility, just for the record. That's very cool when I saw you do that. It's a good idea.
might be neat, right? Is like if an ability of yours would create difficult terrain, your allies ignore it, and it has some extra negative consequence to your enemies. That would be a cool, like, offensive, like, all right, cool. So, like, Entangle, Erupting Earth, even, like, Sleet Storm, might be neat, more interesting abilities. I don't know how versatile that is. How many difficult terrain spells do druids get? I really should have looked that up.
Well, they get Entangle, and
Yeah.
one might be enough.
Well, I know they get Entangle. I know they get Earth Tremor. That's Xanathar's spell. I know they get Ice Knife doesn't create difficult terrain, right? What else creates difficult terrain? Obviously, at high
level 1. Yeah, I mean, there's more stuff.
Some big ability, like plant growth,
Sleet Storm, things like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking like if there's one of at least every level, I think I'm okay with it. I'm just the spike growth. Is that technically difficult?
I was just wondering about spike growth.
It is difficult terrain.
And level 3, we got plant growth, and then.
So yeah, it's level. Oh, plant growth is only level 3.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so I think we got definitely at least one at every spell level. Obviously, Sleet Storm's already at that level too. Even some more niche effects like Wall of Water's not difficult terrain. Okay.
And then, Jeremy, if we're gonna go with like this 10th level kind of trash avatar vibe,
for what?
For the trash druid, if we're gonna do like that direction, I can imagine, keeping that aesthetic, playing it down a little bit in damage, but like maybe just saying space within a certain range of you is difficult terrain, just automatically while you're like in that mode, as you're like just kind of ruining the world.
Oh, that would be sick. Oh my god, it's like the form of Winter's Herald. I love that class. The Warden from 4th edition. It was so cool.
What is it?
It's called the Warden from 4e.
Does it do something like that?
Yeah, it does something cool like that. It's really cool. It's awesome. I love it. I see Raventail was saying maybe it could be something where instead of summoning vines, they can take junks and stuff lying around to make barbed wire or whatever. Raven, you can do that already. You can just say that instead of vines.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing about they should get fog, but call it...
Nothing that has to go... call it smog.
Get fog, but call it smog. Same thing. You just say that your fog cloud is just kind of a thick coating of, like, stale air.
Great difficult terrain. Your allies ignore the difficult terrain. And your enemies... so your allies know difficult terrain. And
I think if we like have that on the 10, it really like we kind of prophesize it, so to speak, on the 1 with like doing it for the spell or ability, and then on 10 when you get that extra kind of like just
that's the ability. That's like there we go. Oh,
that's the ability.
This.
Yeah, I think that's
Blood Deuce in chat. Fuck yes, the Warden. I'm with you, man.
I've never heard of the Warden.
It's so fucking cool. So cool.
Yeah,
I'm very happy
up a little bit, making a miasma around the caster. That also sounds rad.
I love this like Ultima form level 10 feature. It's so not like in character with the rest of the progression we've made so far for this class, but it might just be cool enough to be okay, to be awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think that. And once we decide kind of what we want it to do and how we want it to work, I bet you we can think about it really hard and figure out a way to really make it feel flavorful.
So let's. So if we say this is their big, powerful level 2 feature, I think that's actually great. I really like that. Well, let's ignore it. And so, do enemies fall prone on a save, or how does this work?
Well, the allies ignoring it is already. Fairly, pretty good.
Of course. What other kind of effect do we want to toss on this? I actually, way down here at the bottom of the page, put down ball bearings and caltrops as a kind of example, where ball bearings have a low DC to fall prone, and caltrops have a high DC, but you can avoid it by going. A high DC to take some damage and be slowed. What are we thinking here, right? What do you guys think is like a cool, like additional kind of, or do we even not want to do that? Do we want to just say it? Your allies just ignore it.
It might be enough. I mean, I think that's more impactful than it sounds. Because I mean, I'm picturing the thing now where you use like an entangle at the start of a section, creating. Does entangle create difficult terrain? Or is it just restrain?
Like web does.
Okay.
Don't know about entangle.
Let me look at entangle. I actually don't think it does. Now that I'm thinking about it, because that was one of the ones that I was like.
I think it does. I've got to think in my thunk, but I might be wrong.
No, actually. Oh wait, yep, it does. Yeah, never mind. We're good.
Yep,
we're good.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, because think about it. If you have difficult terrain, it's 20-foot square. So most things at the level when you have entangle, and that's one of your big spells, they have 30 feet of movement, which means they have to double move to get you. Which means you get a nice entangle. Your allies are unaffected, and you get a whole a whole round where they can't attack you because they're trying to get to you. I think that's actually, fairly significant.
It definitely could be. I guess my thought is like a lot of spells that create difficult terrain, especially at higher levels, like Erupting Earth, for example, is the one I'm going to pull out, or
plant growth,
plant growth, or spike growth. Those are okay spells, but they often aren't picked. And they often aren't picked because they aren't that impact. Well, maybe it's just because they, like, for spike growth, why would you not pick spike growth if your allies could ignore it?
That would be pretty powerful.
That'd be so good. So maybe instead your allies can ignore the difficult terrain.
Maybe your allies ignore the effects of your spells
detrimental
that create
effect.
difficult. Yeah, exactly. Like a spell sculpting for these kind of AoE things.
The difficult terrain and detrimental effects.
Yeah, and I think that also works into the category of them scaling well.
I agree. Yeah, because I mean that just makes spike growth an MVP right there. So good. Moonbeam baby. Everyone loves Moonbeam.
Moonbeam.
Exactly right. Because that's the thing, right? Spike growth is competing with Moonbeam. It's got to be a good
and everyone goes with Moonbeam, except for the rare few. Jeremy, you were a spike growth fan for a while. I saw you do some work with that spell, even in the form it was in.
Yeah, he kind of. So, I like the idea of the trash doing having very AoE/poison based. Poison is something we haven't touched on yet.
Well, when I hear poison, since we already have a lot going on, one of the things that is on our brew list right now is this idea of like a pestilence druid as well. And that feels like that would be like where to start messing around with like the poison and kind of decay and death stuff. Like
the thing is, like, I think you can get that feel on the trash druid by picking spells like Acid Splash, Poison Spray,
for sure.
Stinking Cloud. I think Stinking Cloud is a druid spell, right? It might not be.
I don't think it is actually.
That's a kind of a shame.
That was
yeah, it's not
one of the Trash King spells. As a trash, he's like a prestige class trash druid for specifically the dump though.
Yeah, I guess like. Yeah, it's like if we look at the Circle of Land, right, and it has a bunch of spell effects that it gets additional levels. I'd like to do something like that, but it's hard to do something like that and have these three-pronged, this kind of amping up feature and have the difficulty. We have to pick and choose what we can go with, I think.
And that's what we were talking about originally, these ideas of like, these three core things that we really wanted to hit, because there's so many different things that could be in this that we need to like, find something that has some cohesion to it.
I think you can definitely. Is there a Trash Druid expanded spell list card pocket? No, we currently aren't, and that's exactly what we were just saying, right? It's like we have to pick and choose what direction we really are going with here. And I think in terms of the expanded spell list, the only one that I'd even want is Poison Spray. I can't really
Or
think
Stinking
of...
Cloud.
That's what I meant, Stinking Cloud. They have
Yeah.
Poison Spray. Already.
Well, for me, it would be Stinking Cloud, and Catapult is one that is important to me as well. But that...
I'm not sold on Catapult personally.
Yeah, to each their own.
Fair. I just don't think there's enough to make an expanded spell list, is I guess my point.
Yeah, we could, but
we'd have to.
And we're starting to get like some of these things that we want to get across, like Fabricate, and well, that's a big one. Fabricate is something that we're getting into. These earlier features, or Disintegrate would be like, well, a too high level for an expanded spell list, but same vibe.
Yeah. The Fabricate is 4th level, which I think... Would that even be on an expanded spell list? They're 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, right? So yeah, it would. It would be on a spell list. Anyway, let's start figuring a little bit more. Proficiencies. I think proficiencies, we're going to steer clear of extra proficiencies for now. Maybe survival, because that makes a ton of sense. You're not the first person who suggested that, Raventail. I know Max was suggesting it too, and I'm sure some other people. I'm going to put it down on our list of maybe.
Also, we're going to go with we have the metal armor idea as a thing. We're going to try at some point.
So I think right now what we got is we have a cool ability for your difficult terrain effects are better, and that's going to go in at level 2. So we're going to copy that, and we're going to say at level 2 you get what do we call this? What do we want to call that feature? I
think it's got to be something that makes it clear what we mean by this. Because
difficult terrain feature.
Because I think one or maybe just thinking something along the lines of ruined is something, like ruined ground, or
it just feels too edgy to me.
Too edgy?
Yeah.
Well, I think we want something that says what junk pile. That's funny. Stifling rubble. Yeah, rubble is, or is that what it says? It says sifting rubble. I think that's better than difficult terrain feature for sure.
Well, I was just putting that as a placeholder.
Yeah, I know.
Well, we can come up with another name. If I don't think it's bad, but I'm not totally sold on it yet.
On the ability or
on the name? The name.
Oh.
I like the ability.
Yeah, I don't know if just putting it in as a placeholder name.
So let's look back at what the
landfill says Blood Deuce. That's pretty good.
That's not actually bad at all.
I'm gonna put it.
Bonus cantrip. I don't think you're gonna go with a bonus cantrip of some kind. Natural recovery and circle spell. And then wild shape. And so I think we can give is this what our level 2 feature is? Gonna be that, and then whatever this trio of interesting effects are.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that when we build this, or not hoping, I think when we build this, we want them to feel cantrippy when you have them initially. And sifting rubble is going to be kind of the initially load bearing, and hopefully at some point that will kind of flip.
So maybe that's what we say, right? No bold. You learn the mending cantrip, and it says, you learn the mending cantrip at levels X, Y, and Z. The area in which the object's dimensions must fit increases. I don't know by what, 10 times. We can just pull a number out. So instead of a 1 foot in any dimension,
10 feet in any dimension is what you're saying.
he has to go from 1 foot to 10 feet to 100 feet. But we're like, there's
1,000 feet.
So maybe it's just X and Y. So we pick 2 levels, maybe like 7 and 14.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah, and I mean we don't have the numbers on.
These are just arbitrary things. I would like to get the if not the fabricate, the destroy thing in there as well.
Yeah, that was under different effect, right?
Oh, so you're saying like this would be the actual text for the reuse thing?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Okay, so I thought you were saying this in place of the whole thing.
Oh no, I was saying like we could just do something similar like that for each of the 3.
Yeah. I'm in agreement for sure.
Oh, sorry. Instead of the area, the area in which not object but break, because this is not just an object. This is an it is an object.
Well, if you have a big enough scale, even a house is an object.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I want like,
and we'll have more like things. Because we only have like I have a little bit of time to go over. Jeremy, I don't know about you. But we're getting pretty near where we need to be wrapping up.
We are getting pretty close to time, huh?
And I would like to talk a little bit about what we're going to do on 10 and 14.
Yeah, so we have an idea for what we're going for here. We can figure out the specifics about them later. Let's figure out, because I'm really interested at level 10.
10.
I like that level 6 is in a good spot. We have like...
Level 6 feels locked in, for sure. Exactly. That was exactly what I wanted for, I think, the Trash Druid.
So, trash form, whatever this is.
Trash form. One with trash.
Become trash elemental? Is that the direction we want to go?
Can we call it... I'm garbage.
No, I don't care about what name we're going to call it yet. We got to figure out what it does.
Yeah, I know. Just joking around.
So, like, area or trash formers?
Maybe it's like, maybe it's less elemental and more kind of like Trash King when he was doing that trash storm. Like, shit just kind of swirls up around you, and the terrain underneath your feet's kind of the terrain underneath your feet kind of breaks.
So, do we want this to actually use your wild shape, or do we want this to just be something you can, like, channel?
Maybe this is just like a 1-a-day channel ability.
Oh, 1 a day? That's really weird for druids.
That's
it's
true.
Like, it's not like we can't do it.
That's true. Well, I mean, that's actually kind of what the Moon Druid gets. It's just on a short rest is the only thing.
So yeah, maybe it's just once per short rest. Actually, that's an excellent point. Once per short rest. Perfect. I think that's actually great. And so this needs to be approximately as powerful as an earth elemental. So let's go fucking crazy, folks. What do we want to do with this? Obviously, you need to poison while you're in this form.
And, okay, I think we can do a few things that people have been talking about. Because, like, there was one thing, I think it was Raventail was talking about having, like, a smog cloud instead of the fog cloud. Maybe there's, like, a few different effects they can create on their turn. Or, like, at the start of their turn, they can choose what kind of aura they want around them. And maybe one of those auras, like, just the space around you is difficult terrain. The air around you is smog. Like,
so maybe instead of, like, at the start of your turn, I like kind of putting that as an action. So maybe, like, an action, or maybe even a bonus action.
A bonus action on your turn.
AoE effects, like Poison Cloud, or Fog Cloud, or maybe like Rain of Ruin, or Rain of Rubble, or whatever.
Yeah, Rain of Rubble, or like Rain of Acid, or something.
Difficult terrain. So I like this idea, right, of you can kind of channel and keep these forms ongoing. Poison Cloud. I think Acid Rain might be even better than Poison Cloud. But,
yeah, well, I like the smog.
I do like the smog. Yeah, because right, poison cloud is kind of honing in on the smog action.
Yeah,
So,
I think smog would be basically a poison cloud.
yeah.
Plunderlord, yes, tell me more of this cloud you speak of. This is sort of an
And
evil cloud, though, Plunder.
something else?
Um,
Would acid rain do anything else?
Acid rain would probably be more of a damage focused one. Maybe the fog
Oh,
cloud
you know what?
is
Maybe
more of
it
like
makes
a
damage.
choking kind of stinking
It,
cloud
it
style.
damages objects too, maybe.
Yeah,
That'd
some
be neat.
structure damage. Structure damage seems like it makes sense uh, for
And
just the trash druid in general.
damage. Yeah, like siege monster is a feature that monsters get where they do double damage to objects and structures. Um, so I think those are three pretty cool features.
She says change fog cloud to noxious smell. That's for you to roleplay. Is that your character smells bad?
What else did we have on here that people really like? We already have that in there. Survival proficiency people mentioned for level 2.
While in trash form, you are also proficient in survival.
No, I think that survival proficiency is an ability that you just gotta pick. That's
agree.
your option. You
Druids
already can pick
get it.
We don't need an extra proficiency. I don't think so. Yeah, they can also only use metal and no. Corrode objects / thing. This is something that was in there, and I think is really cool.
I love the idea of like one of the auras is just metal around them just starts to rust.
So maybe we do something like a corrode metal, or maybe we can do this in a different way, like a bane effect, maybe, because it'd be temporary. Do we want it to be temporary?
Or this is kind of their big thing. It seems like it's okay to go a little hog wild on it.
Yeah, but it's like because right now they're not getting any temporary hit points or anything, right? We're taking a class that wants to be in the back and not be in melee, and saying go into melee to use these cool effects, which I'm down with. But we need to, I think, be a little cautious because we don't want that like character to be like, all right, my ability is just to go into melee. Oh, I got killed in one hit. Shit. That would suck.
Yeah.
That'd feel real bad.
No, I'm with you.
So maybe instead of metal is damage, metal less impactful within the aura. Might be a cool idea, right?
Yeah. Well, one thing I like about this is I picture when they're using this ability, it does not permanently destroy the land around them. Like I feel like if you're walking,
just temporary.
Yeah, I feel like if you're walking on the street, like the space that you're in, the road looks like ancient and overgrown, and then around it, like it's like visions of what this place will become.
Well, like a mirage or arcane kind of effect.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, you don't know what a mirage arcane is, do you?
I'm not familiar with the term.
It's a spell. A level 6.
I have never taken, and I think I know that I have read it at some point because I've read them all, but I don't remember it.
But I like this idea, right? Of just everything is. I like that. So the corrosive aura being an option as maybe like a more durability based thing, right? Where weapons deal less damage.
And then I think
appear rusted and ruined.
And I like moving between those, but I think the one thing that we should keep on it in all times is the difficult terrain thing.
Yeah, I like that as well.
Because one, that means that all of these effects you get to let your allies not get hit by, so you're not just a plague when you play this thing. Because that would be a terrible thing about this that I'm thinking right now is just hitting your allies with the shit. And since all of it is part of the difficult terrain effect, then all of it is ignored.
Yes, of course. Yeah, exactly. Okay, as a bonus action on your turn, you can give your difficult terrain an additional effect. There we go. Yeah. So instead of as an action, um,
and then maybe it's like creatures within your difficult terrain.
yeah, as a bonus action on your turn, you may cause your difficult terrain to do extra thing.
And some people are throwing out the idea of getting like temporary. I see Tangerine Parasol get temporary HP in trash form or damage reduction. Something about the trash shielding you. So yeah, we're doing that with like the poison immunity as a, as kind of a starter thing. But yeah, I see what you mean. We definitely need something to.
And maybe that's not a feature that goes here.
Yeah, or alternatively, maybe it's rather than making it, maybe one of these area of effects, we can alter it such that there is kind of a defensive option if you're getting beat up a little bit too much. That like makes it harder for people to.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. So, or one that makes it harder for people to hit you or deal less damage. Like I think we just bake some of that into it, so you get to pick.
And I mean, I think the core that we're getting at here is we have a caster who, for 9 levels, is playing as a ranged character, but on 10th level gets this cool close-in effect. And maybe we need to revisit this level 2 feature and give them something to make them more durable. Maybe like they can spend their wild shape charges to regain some health. Might be cool. As just like a regular effect, kind of like the fighter's action or not action second wind.
Yeah,
right?
I see what you're
they
saying.
Can burn, kind of like how the Moon Druid can burn spell slots to heal in wild shape. Well, maybe
this one's not going to really use its wild shape. This is not really part of how this thing plays.
Yeah. I mean, it might use it to be like a rat sometimes, scout, but
yeah,
you're not going to use that in combat frequently at all. So maybe it'd be cool if you could burn a wild shape to, regain half your hit points. I don't know. I can't come up with a number off the top of my head.
But I think we're on the right track for. I think we're on the right track for this ability. I think it's going to be pretty cool. Does anyone have any cool ideas, by the way?
We got a ton of cool ideas coming through in chat.
Well, I know in general, but for a name for this ability, for this level 10 feature, like Maelstrom of Trash or Garbage Wind.
Oh, I see. She was saying instead of making it an aura, maybe make it a controllable area of ruin. Yeah, we could just call it Storm of Ruin, right?
That's a, Shiva, that's the thinking of one who does programming right there. Don't try and fix everything around one problem. Just solve the real problem, which was that we can just make it place somewhere else. Where I think that's a good idea. Yeah, and I guess the one problem with that is it doesn't feel as like that kind of transformation. But that's not really. I guess that's not what we're going for with this guy on the whole, anyway. So I think that's fine.
It's weird, right? Because like I think it feels badass to do.
Yeah, it feels sicker to be like, but I think that can feel just as cool.
So maybe we'll just say, maybe this is an area you can choose and move on your turn.
Yes. And I think, and maybe if we want to do it, it starts on you, so you're always the center of it at the beginning, so it still has that cool like initial impact, and then you can move it afterwards.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. There we go. I think that's where we want to go, and maybe. I don't know. I mean, what are some cool names for it, right? Maybe Reign of Ruin, or Visions of
Ruin. Like
Reign of Ruin's better. The RR, we got the alliteration. Maybe we can go up with a better one. I mean, you guys are cleverer than we are.
Indeed.
And when you have to shout, "I am the trash king."
Yeah, that's basically literally the definition of this ability. Is just you yell out, "I am the trash king."
So starts centered on you.
Bionic Shiva says, being an enemy and watching the aura of ruin slowly creep towards you every turn. Oh, doesn't that sound terrifying? If they're just like across, like I picture in a city street that's fairly abandoned, and there's just this part of the street that's moving towards you, that where like it's just like crumbling and then like fixing itself in a fixed space. That sounds absolutely terrifying.
You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of like the nothing from the Neverending Story.
Oh yeah, dude.
Just I don't know.
That sounds dope as all hell.
I almost want to call this the nothing, but I'm not going to because it's not appropriate. But if I ever played a trash druid that was edgy as fuck. Anyway,
Never-ending story.
Anyway, thank you everybody for joining us today.
Oh, wait, Jeremy.
We're about on time. Yeah, what's up?
Let's take a quick talk about 14.
Well, just say it. So it starts there and you air effect can move each turn. We go difficult train, use poison. AoE effects. Alright, cool. Yeah, let's talk about 14 real quick because we're gonna go over time at this point, but that's okay.
We will just talk generally. I think to round it out, to go in kind of in line with what the other things are, I think we want to move.
Oh, card pocket. Well played, my friend. Well played. Oh, wait a second, card pocket. Get up. You like? You jealous, buddy? You jealous? You jealous, this boy? Yeah, you should be. All right, we're back. Sorry. I had to show off my beholder.
Yeah, but of course. Anyway, the thing I was going to say was, we want to go back, I think, in the communion direction on this one.
Now we've gone way over the top and crazy. Yeah, these are very much communion abilities. It almost feels like this ability is more like in line with how these other level 14 abilities feel. You know?
In terms of like making you feel like a cool endgame trash guy?
Yeah.
In terms of feel, yes, but in terms of mechanics, I think they're.
You want to just do this? You want to just say like, you know, at level 14, you are always under the effects of your Reign of Ruin.
Oh, I guess that depends on how good we make Reign of Ruin. That's spooky.
That sounds good.
It sounds cool.
It might be bad. Like, it might be too OP. It might not be, though. I don't know. I just think that'd be cool.
Let's go with it.
And maybe we can come back to this if we come up with another one that like...
Yeah, I want to think about it. I guess my thought is I would like to get more of that kind of like back to that more like spiritually druid stuff rather than like the 6 spellcaster stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I see what you're saying. Because we have a bit of a disconnect going on, right, between our 3 different vibes here. I think they're all really cool. Because I like the Geonid, the Stone Tell feature at level 6. I think that's really radical. Maybe
I'd like to go back in that direction at level 14.
Maybe we can get some cool, like, past, present, future theming kind of going on. Because the Stone Tell is like the past ruin. This is the future ruin.
Oh, that's interesting.
There's some weird, like...
Yeah, and actually, that's like another thing is like, you know, you place your hand on a ruin and you know its layout. Like, that's like the kind of shit, you know? Yeah, maybe we just... So
maybe at level 14, your understanding of... Yeah, I don't know. We might have to come back to this. This might have to be a multi-week thing. Or maybe we can crack some more into it. I'm not as concerned about level 14 necessarily. The main thing
it's not going to come up in D&D time.
Yeah, not immediately.
Not for a very, very long time.
Well, really is a trash.
I'm talking about the level 14 ability.
Make level 14 Healy. Cure deleted link. It's almost like that link was trash. I troll.
Cure poison and disease. That could be a direction.
Yeah, that could be a cool idea. Maybe like, rather than trying to find a text, like passively cure poison and disease around you. That'd be cool. Disease around you. Purify, or like maybe it's not just cure poison and disease. Cure poison and disease / purify food / and water. That'd be just a cool idea, like this walking avatar of like.
Yeah, I like the idea of like your Reign of Ruin is like.
Correct.
Yeah, you just fix everything when you walk by it. It almost like mending small objects mend themselves around you, and like.
It's almost like the Reign of Ruin is the future that may be, right? Everything's breaking and collapsing and falling apart. And the level 14 is almost more of the like, but wait, nature can fix things. We can prevent this terrible future.
Really, this was all a PSA. You need to talk to your local government and tell them that you...
I love that idea, by the way, Lily. I think that's really cool. Lily, I mean Raventail Black Talon. God damn it. Yeah, I just think that's really neat. That's all.
I agree.
Cool. It'd be neat. It would be cool to like figure out how we're gonna do it, right? But I think the idea is cool.
Yeah, it's all in the. It's gonna be all in the execution on that.
Yeah, right. Well, it's coming up with the exact phrasing and wording, and
which will be tricky naturally.
Yeah, but I think we'll come up with it pretty easily.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we're in a good place.
Yeah, it'd be like as you walk, food and water within a radius of you becomes purified as though under the effect of food and water spell, and as an action on your turn, you can cast the spell Cure Poison and Disease, requiring no component. Right? Just like, cool. I don't know. I think
I agree.
It'd be rad.
And hopefully, I think the next time we do brews, this will be kind of done in terms of all of these little wording things, and we'll have kind of ironed out some of the kinks that we were running into here on, some of the clarity of the theming, and we'll show you what we came up with, and we'll kind of go over it again with all of you, and you can tell us what you think of what we ended up with, and maybe go through one more round of revisions before she's ready to go in the land of D&D time.
Yeah. And actually, she was saying, bring it back to nature thing, allow the roots to be claimed by nature at a rapid rate. I love the idea of being able to just cast plant growth at will at that level. Be like, return my plants. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, agreed. That was one of the things I liked, about them. They weren't, biased. This was something I put in the original description. But the original description, they watch over the transition of the creations of civilization back into their base materials, using their magic to both aid in the process and slow or hasten as they see fit. So I like the idea of them going both ways with it. If they feel like a particular ruin, its time is done, they may work to destroy it, or they may work to restore it. I like both angles.
I agree, yeah. But anywho, guys, we're a little over time, and I got to run, but thank you all for hanging out. It was really great to kind of roll through this. I'm actually a lot more confident with how we're going with this so far than and I like these little themes that have kind of evolved, right? The past, present, and future, the balance of destroy versus, reclaim versus actually repair.
There's definitely some really interesting storytelling that this class is asking to be asking to explore, which is
and that's awesome.
That's what you want out of a great subclass. Is you should look at a subclass and be like, oh, there's a lot of really cool character angles you can take with that by focusing on those different aspects, which I love, and that's what we're starting to do here. And I think this is a very good spot.
I see this trash druid, right, and I'm thinking of it in a non-D&D time context, but like as you enter into the dungeon, the old tomb of forgotten blah 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 from some kingdom long fallen, and you just kind of like pat the walls of the ruin, and you feel at home, like you're visiting an old friend, right? It's just comfortable, even though there are horrible monsters in here. It's just like, this old friend needs to be put to rest, and he's not talking about the undead. The druid's talking about the dungeon itself. It needs to be returned to the earth so something new can be something new, something clean and. This place is trash now. Thanks, Cart Pocket. Thanks. All right, we're done.
What a great ending. My name's Pete.
I'm Jeremy,
and this is DnDTime Brews.
Bye bye.